Hey y'all, my name is Ian Gates, and today I'll be presenting to you my analysis of the North Carolina gubernatorial election. This was very significant because despite Democrats' tough losses in the presidential and US Senate races in North Carolina in 2020, Governor Cooper was able to grow his winning coalition from 2016 to 2020 and end up winning 4 more years in the governor's mansion. To put it simply, Roy Cooper won re-election by outperforming Biden. He did 2.93% better than Biden and 4.58% better than Kyle Cunningham. There were 3 big reasons why he was able to win a state that voted for Trump. Number 1, his promises to expand Medicaid. Number 2, his handling of COVID-19. And number 3, his identity as a blue dog style Democrat. Blue dog Democrats are still alive and they still exist in Washington and in state politics. Some examples would be John Bel Edwards or Abigail Spanberger, but they are few and far between compared to maybe 2000. And his identity as a blue dog Democrat really helps him because even Republicans and moderate independents see themselves in Governor Cooper. Cooper enjoyed high approval ratings, especially on handling of the pandemic, consistently 55 to 60% throughout the campaign. Governor Cooper's frequent pandemic briefings helped him demonstrate his leadership abilities. Cooper took a big risk by not allowing the RNC to happen because of the pandemic. But this didn't hurt him as much as he thought. He made sure that he was firmer than many of his Southern Republican neighbors, but less firm than most other Democratic governors. Republicans nominated a strong candidate, Lieutenant Governor Dan Forest, but he couldn't break through. His lawsuit against Cooper's COVID restrictions failed in August, and Forest's campaign was hoping that North Carolinians would turn on Cooper because they didn't like his restrictions, but this just didn't happen. Medicaid expansion, a key pillar of Cooper's platform, was very popular in North Carolina. Governor Cooper outraised Dan Forest by $28 million, or 26, sorry, and his reelection campaign was very strong. Cooper serves as a check on the North Carolina Republicans' redistricting plans. They are notorious for gerrymandering in the past. And the Pat McCrory term was much further to the right than many voters expected. North Carolina voters may be scared to give the Republican Party a trifecta after the bathroom bill governor. From 2013 to 2017, North Carolina had a Republican governor for the first time in a long time, and he campaigned as a moderate but governed to the base. And this might just be scaring some North Carolina voters who do not like the McCrory days and were impressed by the first 4 years of Governor Cooper. People always talk about the Democrats' base in Mecklenburg County, where Charlotte is. And yes, this is a significant deep blue county. However, rapidly growing Wake has become the largest county in the Tar Heels state earlier this year. And in fact, since turnout in Wake County was 8% higher, 65,000 more people voted in Wake than Mecklenburg. And Wake County is growing so quickly that the county gains an average of 62 new residents per day. Cooper's dominant wins in both Mecklenburg and Wake gave him a 400,000 vote advantage. The GOP won the rest of North Carolina by 150,000 votes, so Cooper ended up winning by 250,000. Governor Cooper won 4 counties that voted for Trump: Granville, Scotland, Lenoir, and Martin. One of the keys to Cooper's victory was a strong performance in Cumberland County, which is home to the city of Fayetteville. Cumberland matters because it's the only large county in North Carolina that's over 40% Black. Democrats typically have to win at least 55% of the vote here to do well in statewide elections. Cooper won 60%. And he did pretty well with moderate voters and even the white voters on the east half of this county. Cooper ran up the margins in 6 counties, in the 6 biggest counties of the state: Mecklenburg, Guilford, Forsyth, Wake, Durham, and Cumberland. According to the North Carolina Rural Center, these are the only rural or urban counties in the Tar Heel state. And just for reference, the 6 major counties or 6 major cities in these counties are Charlotte and Mecklenburg, Guilford or Greensboro and High Point in Guilford, Raleigh in Wake County, Winston-Salem in Forsyth County, Durham in Durham County, and then Fayetteville in Cumberland County. Outperforming Biden really helped Roy Cooper win this re-election campaign, and Robeson County played a big role in particular. Governor Cooper won 8% more of the vote than Biden in Robeson County, a diverse rural swing county that's 38% Native American and 25% Black. Biden did struggle here, and Cooper didn't win. He came really close to winning. He lost by just a few percentage points, but he did win a lot more precincts and a lot more votes than President Biden did. The number of unaffiliated voters in North Carolina has grown dramatically over the past 12 years since Obama flipped the state in 2008. Well, Democrats' voter registration totals are down by almost 10%. This is another reason why Cooper's victory is so significant. He did really well with unaffiliated voters, which make up a high proportion, about a third, of registered North Carolina voters. A lot of people forget just how rural North Carolina is. Out of the nation's largest 10 states, North Carolina has the highest proportion of rural residents. This has helped the GOP really take hold in the state over the last decade and a half. Most of the Democrats' post 2008 struggles in North Carolina are due to rural voters turning their back on the party, especially in eastern North Carolina. This is the map from Kay Hagan's 2008 victory in the gubernatorial election. This was the map from 2020. And today, white rural North Carolina is not voting Democrat anymore. However, Governor Cooper was able to win over hundreds of thousands of Trump voters. For example, look at this map, how there are so many counties in the mountains that are voting for the Democrats in 2008, and now it's just two, Buncombe and Watauga counties. And Southeast North Carolina went from a sea of blue to a lot of red. It's also important to point out that the Democratic nominees for Secretary of State, Auditor, and Attorney General rode Cooper's coattails to victory. In conclusion, Cooper did well because of his handling of the pandemic and his promises to expand Medicaid, as well as his identity as a Blue Dog Democrat. Despite Cunningham's losses, and even Biden's loss as well, Cooper has demonstrated the ability to put together a winning coalition in a state that leans Republican. His victory should serve as a blueprint for Democrats moving forward in North Carolina. Now I want to show you a regional analysis that I did all by myself. So these are the regional economic commissions that make up the state of North Carolina. And North Carolina is a very interesting swing state. It is full of so many different types of voters. You have your older voters along the coastline. You have Black voters in rural parts of the state and in urban parts of the state. You have white rural voters in the Appalachian region in the western part of the state. And you also have progressive cities like Asheville and Chapel Hill, full of young people. So North Carolina is full of so many distinct regions with very interesting identities and a lot of different kinds of people. It also is home to some booming cities like Raleigh and Charlotte, and home to a growing tech sector. So there's a lot going on in North Carolina, a lot going on economically, a lot going on demographically. And it is just a very unique state, and that is why it needs to be looked at through a regional lens. This is how the regions of North Carolina voted. Here's how the counties voted. The three biggest regions of the state are Central Carolina, Triangle J, and the Piedmont Triad. Together, they make up 58.9% of North Carolina's population who voted in this election, which is about 60% coming from those three regions in particular. Those three main regions really stick out when you put all of the regions out onto one chart. Democrats dominated in Triangle J. They won by 6% in Central Carolina, and then they lost the Piedmont Triad by 0.8%, so it was really, really tight there. Democrats really ran up the margins in Triangle J. They barely won Central Carolina, and then they barely lost the Piedmont Triad. They lost the rest of North Carolina by 150,000 votes. They won the three big regions of the state by 406,000, and so they were able to win by 150,000 votes. The Democrats were strongest in Triangle J, winning 64% of the vote in the largest region in the state. They were weakest in the Western Piedmont, where they only won 31.7% of the vote in the counties in and around Hickory. And these are counties west of the Piedmont Triad. Roy Cooper improved on the margins from his 2016 victory in every region but 5. He only lost ground in 2. Notably, Republicans gained a lot of ground in southwestern Virginia, and we talked about how a lot of these rural counties are swinging away from the Democrats. This is a continuation of those trends. Turnout was highest in the high country in the mountains of North Carolina and lowest in the majority Black Lumber River region. Now, just to look at a few graphs that I thought did a good job at explaining what happened in this election. As you can see, Cooper was able to win a majority of the vote, something that he didn't do in his first term. He was able to beat his Republican opponent by 3.5%. It was a very, very tight race last time. Still is very close, looking at a margin of 3.5, but it definitely was a bigger victory than his first time running for governor. The Cooper campaign also outraised Danforth by a margin of 3-1. As you can see, those two big counties really stick out, Mecklenburg and Wake. And then you got all these 95 rural counties here, most of them lean Republican. Republicans averaged 55% of the vote per county. Democrats averaged 43%. And averaging 43% on a county by county basis in a state with nearly 100 counties is pretty good for being in the South. Governor Cooper rarely won less than 25% of the vote, and he did a pretty good job at reaching out to rural voters. Durham and Orange are the two bluest counties by far. They voted 77 and 82% Democrat. They are home to the cities of Durham, Hillsborough, and Chapel Hill. Where Cooper gained an average of 1% per county. This really helped him boost his statewide vote totals. And looking at the Democrats, they are very dependent on the two biggest counties in the state, Mecklenburg and Wake. This is their winning coalition. 28% of all the people who voted Democrat in 2020 came from those two counties alone. But they are also dependent on crucial counties like Buncombe, Asheville, Cumberland, which is home to Fayetteville, and Guilford, which is home to Greensboro and High Point. Democrats had some weak results in many of North Carolina's white rural counties, but they did very well in many of the state's urban and Black counties. They did struggle in rural counties, but on average, they won 43% statewide. They gained ground in 62% of the state's counties and only lost ground in 24%. Looking at the Republicans, they are dependent on a coalition made up of a lot of small counties, but also some big red counties like Johnston, Union, Randolph, and Davidson. While Mecklenburg and Wake make up 28% of the Democrats' total votes, they only make up 14.5% of the Republicans' votes. So while Democrats can rely on really turning out a lot of voters in those two big counties, Republicans have to work on turning out voters all across the state in many rural areas, as well as those big suburban counties that I just discussed. They averaged 55% of the vote per county, but had some weak results, those two numbers I talked about in Durham and Chapel Hill. And that's about it. Thank you for tuning into this video. Really means a lot. And be looking out for Utah. That'll be the next gubernatorial analysis video, talking about Spencer Cox's big victory and how Utah leans as a state. Thanks for tuning in and have a great day.